Great Lakes Prepping here with your prepper report for the week of February 21st, 2021. Well, it's been a few weeks since my last weekly prepper report, and I have no excuse except that there's not always enough time in the day to do what needs to be done. Things have been especially busy around the Great Lakes Prepping bunker, as I'm a glutton for punishment and have undertaken yet another large renovation project. But with so much stuff happening in the prepper world right now, I would be remiss if I didn't burn a little midnight oil so I could put out a report this week. Of course, the biggest news in the past week or so is the catastrophe in Texas. Snow, ice storms, and sustained freezing temperatures led to catastrophic failure of the power grid in Texas, the effects of which have resulted in dozens of deaths and practically inconceivable property damage around the state. Like a house of cards tumbling down, one problem after another began unfolding as millions of energy customers were left without power. The spiraling effects of this catastrophe are almost too many to list in a state that does not often experience such weather and is ill-prepared to endure it. Burst water lines leaving homes and businesses in ruins, snow and ice making transportation of nearly every type difficult or impossible, all manner of supply chain being debilitated from groceries to gasoline. Even places like hospitals were at the mercy of these circumstances. I saw one video from an emergency room where staff did all they could to curb the flooding from broken water pipes. There are reports all over of basic healthcare services being severely impacted. In Michigan, freezing temperatures, ice and snow are all normal. We have the infrastructure, utilities, services, and building codes in place to handle it all pretty well. Our water lines are buried deep in the ground. Our cities employ fleets of snowplows and salt trucks. Our utilities are hardened and maintained to operate in most weather situations. And people have a general baseline of knowledge to navigate the problems that can arise from such weather. The exact opposite is true for a state like Texas. While I could heat my home or myself 10 different ways if my electricity or natural gas stopped flowing, people in Texas literally froze to death in their homes. It's difficult for me to imagine sitting in my house in 20-degree temperatures, just gradually slipping into hypothermia and dying. But the scale of this disaster was so big, so many people were affected who had nowhere else to go, no backup gear to rely on, and no experience with even the most basic cold weather survival. In addition to deaths from freezing, there were also numerous cases of carbon monoxide poisoning from people choosing to use generators or outdoor heaters in their homes. Some people even dragged their charcoal barbecues into the house in a desperate attempt to warm up, to their unfortunate demise. So now it's been over a week, and while power service to many homes has been restored, the problems are still in full swing. There are still water issues all over the state due to broken pipes and water lines. Boil water advisories are in effect in many areas, and that's for the people lucky enough to have functioning plumbing. While the circumstances of a cold weather disaster in a southern state are surely the ultimate culprit here, a ton of the blame is being placed on the energy companies. Texas has its own power grid, mostly separate from the rest of the country. This makes the power supply in Texas largely unregulated. The Electric Reliability Council of Texas, or ERCOT, manages power for much of the state, and they are facing immense criticism for apparently ignoring repeated warnings about preparing their equipment and systems for such eventualities. To add insult to injury, the market-driven nature of the Texas power supply is causing skyrocketing electric bills for the residents. Electricity rates are more or less determined by real-time supply and demand. Since the demand shot through the roof in the past couple weeks to unprecedented levels, so did the rates. It's gotten so out of hand, some Texans have reported receiving electric bills for upwards of $10,000. A $10,000 electric bill. And of course, the lawsuits are already beginning to fly. Many believe the state or ERCOT should be held responsible for the exorbitant and insane electric bills people are facing. Families who have lost family members, including young children, to the freezing temperatures are suing the power companies for negligence. New problems and side effects of the disaster are unfolding each day. The COVID vaccination effort in Texas has been slowed to a crawl. Now we're hearing that air pollutants are spiking to dangerous levels in certain parts of the state. Apparently, when oil refineries and plants along the coast were forced to shut down because of weather-related issues, those facilities burned the gas in the system to prevent damage to their equipment from taking place. Just counting the 5 largest oil refineries in Texas, thousands of tons of air pollutants were emitted into the atmosphere, causing the skies to literally darken in those cities. And to nobody's surprise, lasting problems with the supply chain are expected, not just in Texas, but for other parts of the country that are supplied by Texas. Gasoline, of course, agricultural products, food. As if we needed anything else right now to hinder supply and drive up prices. A lot of meat and produce comes from Texas, as do vegetable seedlings. All in all, I'm a pretty lucky person. I sincerely feel for everybody who's been suffering in Texas, people whose homes have been destroyed, and will surely face a bunch of bullcrap from insurance companies trying to reject or mess around with their claims. Farmers who lost crops, ranchers who lost livestock. As with any modern large-scale disaster, there has been a noticeable surge in interest in all things survival, prepping, and so forth. It's terrible that many people require tragedy before snapping out of complacency, and the last 12 months have certainly been a wake-up call for many. I just hope that lots and lots of new people are inspired to start taking it seriously and realize the lessons to be learned from the Texas situation. For myself, and I know a lot of my viewers, there's basically zero chance of me freezing to death in my own house 1 week after losing electricity or natural gas. I hope after this, millions of Texans and Southerners in general will begin to put the pieces in place to make sure that they won't either. So that's it for now. That's the whole report for this week. A disaster this big warrants an entire video because there's just so much to sort out. This has been your Prepper Report for the week of February 21st, 2021. Be sure to like and subscribe and stay up to date on all our latest stuff. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay informed, stay prepared, stay vigilant, and stay warm.